I think my love for letters is something to do with language, and I like the idea of recording language. I like, for instance, lists of words that are just a sort of aide-memoire to something that's much bigger. This is the hospice words which I've got from conversations from people. And I'm just exploring the idea of inviting people to butt words up against each other. There's this magical way of capturing language, and you simply string these funny, arbitrary little shapes together. And it doesn't matter how you do it, whether it's very colourful or very black and white, or very painterly or very formal and on a computer, and you still end up with this idea of communication through language. The old thing about letters is they're signs for sounds, which is true, but they're completely arbitrary. They're so familiar we think it's something to do with O, you know, and it's all nonsense. You could quite easily have the sound O represented by an X. It's just convention has given us these things. So they are arbitrary shapes, and they're just abstract shapes. They've got nothing to do with anything, any representation. The nice thing about it is that adults still, when they write, they might not do any other art, but they are drawing abstract shapes when they're writing. Curiosity is the engine of creativity. That's for me anyway. So if I'm asking what if I do it like this, or what if it's like that, that's likely to produce something that's creative. But it quite often can be a dog's breakfast, and that's okay too. And I've got a studio full of failures, and that's okay. I'm very interested in the way in which visible language can do something else other than just be visible in an ordinary and mundane sort of way. It's over 10 feet long by 5 feet high. It will be. So this is just a little section. I'm almost making sometimes little logos of words. Working at a large scale throws up all sorts of interesting possibilities. It's fraught with problems, but it's something that I've taken years to come to. And working at scale is partly to do with trying to get impact and trying to get away from the narrow confines of an ordinary sized document, whether it's a book or a page or a newspaper. And I like as well the cinematic idea where the vision of the image is going away from your peripheral vision, and that you are really confronted by an image first and foremost. This is the word Veronica, and it's all part of a very large project, not only large in terms of scale, but large in time and numbers and effort and everything, which is called Honouring Wythenshawe. And I don't worry about legibility because I'm not imagining my work to be seen like a motorway sign has to be read at 70 miles an hour. I imagine a lot of my work to be lived with, and when you're living with something you don't have to work it all out at the same time. And it's likely anyway that you would have some language, if you were living with it, that you liked already. So it's more than likely you wouldn't be using what I do as a primary source of reading. And the essential thing of legibility is familiarity. So sometimes I will rotate letters and not worry about whether you can see it straight away, because I don't have to. I think the idea here is, as well, like a lot of them, is to encourage people to walk around it, and they have to actually just to sort of confirm what the word is, the ending of the word. Straightforward legibility in this case is not what's wanted. This is a quotation from Paul Klee, but it's a really great thing. It says, "Something has been made visible which could not have been perceived without the effort to make it visible." And I think the operative word there is the effort, and it's interesting that he's commenting on the almost a fundamental of lettering, which is about the effort that can be seen, that has been put into something, as opposed to, let's say, just tapping something out on a computer, on a keyboard. There's very little effort in that. But if letters are seen to be made, then I think people respond to that.
You feel the need to tell us about him.
We're surrounded by documents, and we imagine that they are, I think mostly, like a book or a magazine or a sheet of paper or a printed out email. I don't think we think of an email on the screen as a document. It's got to be somehow almost like something in the hand. But that's not quite true. Documents are much broader than that, I think. And I'm interested in staying within the bounds of a document, but perhaps making people walk around it, or for it to revolve. And Wilfred Owen's poem, The Parable of the Old Men and the Young, I made into a different sort of document. It's about, the poem's about sacrifice, about needless sacrifice in the First World War. So I decided to reflect that content by making what I call a altar stroke sarcophagus. So an altar and a coffin together. And it's a document in which you have to walk around. And I would hope people who would walk around it are maybe familiar with the poem. And so they're not, again, using the thing as a primary source of reading, but the way in which it interrelates and the way in which it's on this three-dimensional shape does have an added element to how one might understand the poem. In fact, for some people, it might be a new way of looking at the poem. Some people say that one very important word in the whole hospice experience was the word love. So I've put in the word fear inside. You can just about read it, I think, inside the word love. See if that works. And I won't know until it's all sort of, this rough stage is finished. I used to think that graphic design was about the manipulation of images and text. But we now realise that text, even the most bland-looking page in a book, is an image, first and foremost. Before we've read anything about it, it's an image. And so the whole world is just made up of images, and visible language is just part of that huge visible world.